July 29, 1944. One afternoon, near Rancy, France. P-47. Thunderbolts caught a German armored column trying to escape the Allied advance. When the shooting stopped 6 hours later, investigators counted 122 tanks and 259 vehicles destroyed in a single coordinated attack. Strategic bombers dropped thousands of tons of explosives on German cities, but German soldiers on the ground didn't fear bombers. They feared the sound of that massive radial engine screaming toward them at treetop level, because when you heard it, you had seconds to live. The Republic P-47. Thunderbolt was the heaviest single-engine fighter of World War II. 10,000 pounds empty, 17,500 pounds fully loaded with fuel, ammunition, bombs, and rockets. The massive 2,000 horsepower Pratt & Whitney radial engine stuck out the front like the nose of a freight train. Pilots called it the Jug because from certain angles it looked like a milk jug with wings. The design originally aimed for high-altitude bomber escort duty, and it excelled at that role. But someone realized that a fighter built to absorb punishment at 30,000 feet could survive ground attack missions that would shred lighter aircraft. The P-47 became the ultimate tank killer, train buster, and column destroyer of the European theater. 8 Browning M2 .50 caliber machine guns, 4 in each wing. More firepower than any other Allied fighter in the war. When the pilot squeezed the trigger, those 8 guns fired a combined 100 rounds per second. The ammunition wasn't standard ball rounds either. These were armor-piercing incendiary and armor-piercing explosive rounds designed to punch through steel and ignite fuel tanks. German ace Heinz Baer flew against P-47s and later said the aircraft could absorb an astounding amount of lead and keep fighting. That worked both ways. The 8-gun broadside could saw a truck in half, penetrate tank engine decks, and turn soft-skinned vehicles into burning wrecks in a single pass. The Rancy pocket became a killing ground that shocked even veteran pilots. The 405th Fighter Group found the trapped German column at 3:10 p.m. and attacked continuously until 9:40 p.m. Wave after wave of P-47s rolled in, firing guns and dropping bombs on vehicles that had nowhere to go. The roads were clogged. Germans abandoned their equipment and ran for the hedgerows, but the Thunderbolts hunted them there too. Ground teams investigated afterward and confirmed the carnage. 66 tanks completely destroyed, not just damaged. 204 other vehicles obliterated. 11 artillery pieces wrecked. The French countryside was littered with burned-out Panthers, Tigers, and half-tracks. This wasn't a battle. This was execution from the air. December 17, 1944, during the Battle of the Bulge. Major George Motzenbecker was leading a patrol near Monschau when he spotted something that made him radio for every available P-47 in the area. A German column stretching 4.5 miles, bumper to bumper, heading straight for American lines. Over 150 vehicles packed so tight they couldn't maneuver. The Hellhawks of the 365th Fighter Group descended on that column like a hammer. For the next hour, P-47s made pass after pass, firing guns and launching rockets into the trapped formation. Post-strike reconnaissance confirmed 115 vehicles destroyed with photographic evidence. The American defensive line held because that German reinforcement column never arrived. 2 P-47s went down, but the mission accomplished what an entire infantry division couldn't have done. The P-47 carried a terrifying variety of weapons for ground attack. Standard loadout included 2 500-pound bombs or a single 1,000-pounder for hard targets like bridges and bunkers. Then came the Holy Moses rockets, 5-inch high-velocity aircraft rockets that hit with the impact of a 105mm artillery shell. 10 of those under the wings turned the Thunderbolt into flying artillery. Pilots developed skip bombing techniques, bouncing bombs into tunnel entrances to destroy trains hiding inside mountains. When the mission called for anti-personnel work, they loaded napalm. The P-47 could carry any ordnance the ground crews could hang on it, and crews got creative. The numbers from D-Day to VE Day tell the real story. P-47 Thunderbolts destroyed 86,000 railroad cars across France and Germany. 9,000 locomotives blown apart or left burning on the tracks. 6,000 armored vehicles eliminated, tanks, half-tracks, armored cars, self-propelled guns. 68,000 trucks turned into scrap metal. No other aircraft in the Allied inventory came close to these totals. The P-51 Mustang gets the glory for escorting bombers to Berlin. The P-47 did the ugly work of strangling German logistics and mobility on the ground. Strategic bombing destroyed factories. The Thunderbolt destroyed everything those factories produced before it reached the front lines. German soldiers learned to recognize that sound. Strategic bombers flew high enough that you heard them coming from miles away and could take cover. The P-47 came in low and fast, engines screaming, and by the time you heard it, the guns were already firing. Panzer Commander Hans von Luck described the terror of trying to move during daylight hours with enemy planes swooping down uninterruptedly. The Falaise Gap became a graveyard in August 1944 when Allied fighters led by P-47s trapped two German armies on narrow roads. The carnage was so complete that tank crews abandoned undamaged vehicles and fled on foot. Roads became impassable, blocked by destroyed equipment and bodies. German forces learned to move only at night, and even then the Thunderbolts hunted with flares. Lieutenant Leslie Bowes named every P-47 he flew blonde trouble and crashed 4 of them during combat operations. He survived every crash and kept flying. The aircraft's reputation for durability wasn't propaganda. It was proven in combat daily. Pilots brought P-47s home with direct 80-centimeter flak hits through the wings. The air-cooled radial engine meant one lucky shot couldn't drain the coolant and force an emergency landing like it could with liquid-cooled engines. You had to destroy major structural components or kill the pilot to bring down a Thunderbolt. The 56th Fighter Group, the Wolfpack, was offered P-51 Mustangs multiple times and refused every offer. They trusted the jug to bring them home, and it did. They were the only 8th Air Force Fighter Group still flying P-47s by choice when the war ended. Strategic bombers destroyed German factories, refineries, and rail yards. The P-47 Thunderbolt destroyed everything that moved on the roads leading away from those targets. Bomber crews flew at 25,000 feet and rarely saw individual enemy soldiers. P-47 pilots came in at treetop level and saw the terror on German faces right before they opened fire. The psychological impact was devastating. German troops learned that daylight movement meant death, and the sight of those distinctive Razorback fuselages meant they had seconds to abandon their vehicles and dive for cover. The fighter-bomber concept changed ground warfare forever, and the P-47 proved it worked. Its legacy lives on in the A-10 Warthog, designed for the same role 70 years later. The Thunderbolt earned its name by bringing thunder and lightning to every German column it found, and those columns never forgot the sound.